Secretary General Antonio Guterres may be the face of the UN, but his spokesman is the person answering the daily barrage of questions from the press. I sat down with Stephane Dujarric to talk about whether or not the UN is still relevant in a world of growing crisis and conflicts. I'm Frank Uciardo, and you're watching TRT World One-on-One. Stephane Dujarric, thank you for joining us here on TRT World. A very busy year with the inclusion of this special Summit of the Future. Tell us how that got on.
Sure, Frank. Nice to be here. Nice to be back on TRT. We're having this evening the closure of the Summit of the Future. It opened yesterday, and it opened with the adoption of what we call the Pact of the Future, which is really a blueprint on how this organization, this global organization, can be more effective, can be better designed to meet all of the challenges that we face, whether in terms of peace and security, technology, and development. And I think Secretary General is very pleased that it got through.
You've been here the better part of 2.5 decades, and you've seen a lot go by for the UN. What are the challenges that the UN is facing this year as opposed to the last 2 years?
Well, I think, what is worrying for us is a growing impunity. We are seeing it, we all see it in our own societies, but at the international level, we're seeing increasing violations of human rights law, increasing violations of international humanitarian law, and without any consequences. And we cannot live in a world of impunity. And this is one of the themes that the Secretary General will develop tomorrow during his keynote address at the opening of the General Assembly.
I think one of the great frustrations for the Secretary General is that he tries to get certain initiatives through the Security Council, but they seem to be deadlocked on some of the most crucial and deadly issues facing the world today. Tell us about what the Secretary General is facing in terms of Gaza and Lebanon right now.
Well, in Lebanon, we're very worried about the developments we're seeing today as we speak, which is this increased escalation of fighting between Hezbollah and Israel. And the people who are paying the price, as in almost any other conflict, are the civilians. We're seeing tens of thousands of civilians in southern Lebanon who've had to flee. Tens of thousands of Israelis who've had to flee northern Israel for now a better part of the year. We need to see a return to diplomacy. And the UN has the tools, right? We have the mechanisms, whether on the ground in Lebanon or here within the Security Council. But for that, we need those countries that are involved in the region, those who have an influence over those in the region, to all be speaking from the same song sheet. And that is a return to diplomacy, that neither Lebanon nor Israel will be any safer by continuing military action.
Let's talk about Security Council reform. That's a big deal as far as the Secretary General is concerned. And of course, people criticize it because saying, okay, so say you have 18 people in the council, you still have people with a vote and a veto. Now what?
Well, I think first of all, we got in the Pact of the Future is the first real language on Security Council reform in decades, right? A recognition that there's a historical injustice, the fact there are no Africans on this council, and other regions are underrepresented. The council right now is a reflection mostly of the world in 1945, not of the world of 2024. If you think of, to speak of Africa, but many countries in Asia as well, where the time of the charter were colonies or commonwealths, not only did they suffer by being under the rule of another people, but they suffered by not being at the table when the architecture of the United Nations was actually designed. So what we're trying to do now is readdress that injustice and make the organization more reflective. But I think you're correct on one point, that it'll just be more people voting. One of the problems is that people need to understand that what is going on in the world outside, the challenges in the bilateral relations between the world's most powerful country, has a direct impact on what goes on inside this organization.
So the U.S., as of course the host country of the United Nations, bears a large responsibility as far as I can see.
In terms of
a ceasefire agreement, in terms of helping there to be access for UN agencies operating in the Middle East. I can't remember a time in the last 20 years where so many UN aid workers have been attacked, have been killed. This must be incredible for you.
I mean, listen, on the suffering of our own colleagues, it's immense, right? We've never seen that level of humanitarian workers being killed in the line of duty. I mean, you talked about the U.S. responsibility. Let's be clear. In a conflict such as Gaza, such as Lebanon, the people who have the first line of responsibility are those who have their fingers on the trigger, right? They must agree to stop firing at each other. They must agree to stop this violation of international law. They must agree to stop killing civilians. They must agree to release the hostages. Other countries have a responsibility to push towards that ceasefire. And the U.S., Qatar, Egypt have all been involved and have all pushed the parties to a ceasefire, but the holdup is with the parties.
You know, because of the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, people are forgetting about a war in Ukraine, and then there's other critical issues that the UN deals with in terms of law of the sea, climate change, all these other issues that are usually at the forefront but seem to have been pushed to the back because of these.
Well, I mean, not only are they pushed to the back, I mean, you should take an issue like climate change, but it also, conflict has a direct negative impact on climate change, right? I mean, the militaries are huge emitters of carbon emission, right? And so active conflict is also bad for climate change, on top of the fact that we're not dealing with those issues as much as we should.
In closing, I want to crystallize the big message that the Secretary General has for this particular General Assembly, because he is in a place in history where a lot of Secretary Generals hasn't really previously been. He has so much on his plate, on his shoulders, the weight of the world and the weight of many civilians that are being impacted by crises around the world. What's his message?
The message is for member states to reaffirm support for the agreements they signed themselves, the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to remind them that we have rules, we have laws, they must be respected, and it is to put an end to this growing impunity that we're seeing, for which civilians are paying the brunt of the price.
Final comment, how do you respond to people who are saying, is the UN still relevant?
Well, I asked them, which UN are you talking about? Are you talking about the Security Council? Are you talking about the UN of member states, of a deadlocked Security Council? Are you talking about the irrelevancy of, if you want to call that, of UN humanitarian organizations that feed millions of people every day? The UN Refugee Organization, which houses refugee everydays, those are not irrelevant organizations. And on top of that, your viewers may not understand or may not be aware that the UN is also the International Civil Aviation Organization that allows people to fly from Istanbul to New York. Because we've created a set of rules on how airplanes fly. We've created a set of rules on how you can mail packages from one country to another. We created a set of rules on medicine and health. All those are relevant, and even more relevant today than they've ever been.
You mentioned Istanbul. Ankara, Istanbul, Turkey has been a good partner with the UN when they initially had a grain deal. Where are we?
Yeah, I mean, we still hope those things can be revived. Turkey has been a very important partner to the United Nations, Secretary General, especially on issues related to Ukraine, and we will continue to work very closely with Turkey on all sorts of issues.
Stephane Dujarric, spokesperson for the Secretary General and the United Nations, thank you for joining us here on TRT World.
Thank you, Frank. Pleasure.